Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are talking about shame, releasing guilt, specifically if you are currently in a season of spending. What I mean by that is if you are currently utilizing savings or investments or money that a past version of you has set aside in the bank account or in the investment accounts for current you or future you, right? If you are having to utilize those in order to survive or make it through right now or go through a change in your life, or if you are needing to borrow money from future you, i.e., taking out a loan or using a line of credit, right? So we're talking about these two scenarios and how to be in a season of spending, be in a season where you are actively utilizing resources set aside or that future you will need to pay back in order to make it through current time. And why we're talking about this right now, it's in relation to the episode that came out last week, which is financial self-care in times of crisis. And a huge part of financial self-care during times of crisis is not letting shame and guilt pile on top of the stuff you're already having to deal with when it comes to a time of crisis, right? And I don't even want to use the word crisis. I want to use a time of change, upheaval, a shift, whether that be in your personal life or whether that be environmental, political, economic, right? So what we are talking about today, what I'm going to walk you through, is how to be in a season of spending, which I'll elaborate on what that is, how to be in a season of spending without being mad at yourself or mad at the season that you're currently in, so that you can move through this season quicker and with more ease and come out the other side being able to save and invest and put money aside, pay off debt, whatever it is, at a faster pace because you don't have the weight of shame and guilt weighing you down, okay? So we're talking about this today because last week I did an episode on financial self-care in times of crisis. If you haven't listened to that yet, go listen to it. I think it's very apropos to what we're all experiencing and feeling right now. Also, I recently wrote an article for Casting Networks. I do a monthly feature with them around money, specifically targeted toward artists, creatives, and actors. And it was focused on what to do when disaster strikes, aka the LA fires. And so when the LA fires are currently happening, right, will continue to happen, a lot of people experienced needing to evacuate, get a hotel, get a flight, things that were totally unexpected and not in their financial plan. And even people who, oh my God, my heart hurts, lost things in the fire, lost their homes or lost belongings, right? Even if they had insurance, there's going to be money that has to come out of their pocket in order to buffer them until insurance kicks in or until they are able to get the help they need in order to rebuild. And so with those things, those are very clear, unexpected expenses that came up that require financial support and backing, okay? So what I have noticed, and these are from speaking to like specific people in my life, is that there's this energy of anger about having to spend this money that was unexpected and it putting them behind on their money goals, right? Or like being mad that they had to use their emergency fund that they had just filled up and set aside in order for this thing. There's this energy of like shame and guilt of I'm mad at myself that I had to use this, or I'm mad that I didn't plan better for this unexpected expense. So on top of all of the heartache and hard, sad, angry, all of that, and then just like the tactical, let me save me and my family and my home, right? As we move through this. And then having to deal with like the weight of climate change and the weight of knowing that our, governments and these crises that could have been handled better or prevented, like, aren't doing anything. Like, there's a bunch of fucking weight that we're already carrying around in a time like this. And my desire for you is that we can remove the brick of financial shame or financial anger or money being an issue from the situation, so that you have more capacity to hold the weight of the other stuff that inherently comes with a hard time or a life transition or a crisis, okay? So this came up because of the LA fires, but it got me thinking. And I mean, here we are, the week of the inauguration. And I know so many of you all are feeling this exact same way, but like, it's fucking heavy here, man, right? Like having to hold and feel through a lot of this stuff. And I know so many of us, like the urge to soothe, the urge to numb, the urge to, get as much dopamine as we can, right? As we're trying to process and feel through like what we are walking into, right? Which is insane. And so with that, then also comes spending money being used in order to soothe and numb and get those dopamine hits, right? And so it will also be and we'll talk about this in a second, like in the realm of financial self-care, how to stay aware and also give yourself what you need, and how shame and guilt ties into this. But money is going to touch a lot of this heavy stuff, big stuff, meta stuff that we are walking into and that we have been experiencing and that we will continue to experience. So the goal here is to remove that guilt and shame from the financial aspect, to be able to give yourself what you need and do what you need to do, and then be able to come out on the other side and still like what you see in the bank accounts, or be able to rebuild what's in the bank accounts, build again what's in the bank accounts without the guilt and the shame holding you back. And when we're talking about guilt and shame, the phrases that surround guilt and shame that might be running through your brain are phrases like, I shouldn't have to, I wish I didn't, I'm mad that I, insert thing, that was really dumb, that was not thoughtful, I wish I was in a different place. And then this is the deeper layer, which we'll talk about in a second. But then the deeper layer is like, I don't deserve to enjoy or have ease around my money because I insert thing, right? I'm bad at money because insert thing. So guilt and shame, that's what they sound like. That's the words that come out of guilt and shame's mouth. That might be the sneaky soundtrack that's playing in your brain as you are navigating, utilizing your money to move you through a period of life. So when I say moving through a period of life and a spending season, if you haven't listened to the episode about seasons of spending, saving, and sustaining, go listen to that episode. I'll link it in the show notes. It was linked in last week's episode as well. It's called The Myth About Saving Money. But the money seasons are this idea that you're never going to always be saving, okay? So spending, being in a season of spending means that what's going out is more than what's coming in. Okay, so you're using your savings to, let's say, move to a different city, or you're using your emergency fund because you can't work because there's fires and you're out of work for a month and a half, right? So you need to use your emergency fund in order to support yourself because money isn't coming in. So, or you're between gigs, you're between jobs, you have a medical expense that's requiring like big monthly payments. Like, who knows? There's so many things that could mean for a season of spending. But what happens is a season of spending feels worse than a season of saving, because we feel like something has gone wrong if you're not able to consistently save and invest, if you're not consistently in surplus. But that doesn't exist. Being consistently in surplus does not exist, even for 9-to-5ers, even for those of you with consistent biweekly paychecks. I've been using this example all the time, but my parents have their eyes on retirement right now. And what's coming up for them is like, whoa, even though we have fully set ourselves up to live a really lovely, spacious retirement life, it's going to feel really scary to no longer be in a season of saving and investing, to be fully in a season of spending where literally nothing is coming in, only money is going out. Right? So a season of spending doesn't mean anything bad has happened, doesn't mean anything has gone wrong. It just means that's the season that you're in. And for all of us who are self-employed and freelancers, gig workers, creative service providers, we're going to fluctuate through these seasons a lot more than someone who may have a consistent biweekly paycheck, because we're going to have dips in our income, right? We're going to have seasons where we're in between gigs. Like, our income fluctuates much more wildly. And so being in a season of spending, being in a season of saving, and being in a season of sustaining, it's going to fluctuate a lot more. So you need to get really comfortable in each and every season and know that spending is the number one money skill, because we save and invest to end up spending it later, right? So if you don't feel comfortable being in a season of spending, you're going to feel real uncomfortable later in life when that's all you're doing in retirement, right? You're going to feel real uncomfortable anytime you need to utilize your savings in order to get you through a time of crisis, or in order to move you through a season of life where you need to make a change. Right? I have a client who she went on sabbatical, and she's like in between a couple of moves, she's switching jobs, but she is taking a really deep breath and a spaciousness in her financial life in order to figure out what she wants life to look like. So she's not in a time of crisis. She's in a time of transition, trying to figure out what she wants out of life. Okay. And that required a cut in income. That required her to use the money she had saved. And a lot of our work together was working on not feeling bad about that, knowing that that's what that money was here for. And so if you are in a season, whether it's because of a crisis or a disaster, or because you're in a season of transition, or because you're in a season of just trying to figure out what the fuck life is going to look like moving forward, whether you just graduated or you are in between jobs, but now you don't know where you're headed. I think a lot of us are asking really big questions right now, myself included, of like, what do I actually really want my life to look like? What are the things that are actually going to bring me joy? Like, when I strip back all the things, right? All the accolades, all the ladders I could climb, all the things I thought I wanted, if everything's up for debate, if everything's on the table, what do I actually want? I think a lot of us are asking flavors of that question right now. And so with asking that question can come a time of having to like pull back a little bit, right? Maybe not hustle and grind as much as you have been. Maybe not chase as much as you have been. Maybe take a breather, take a break, take a sabbatical, who knows, right? So it could be something like that as well. And I think a lot of us are in a season of whatever that is. And so in a season of that disaster, crisis, or transition, ask yourself the big existential questions. If you find yourself in a place where you are needing to utilize the savings that are in your bank account, or even utilize your investment accounts, I'm going to talk about that in a second, or use a line of credit, let's figure out how to make you not feel bad about that so that you don't carry that weight with you. Because here's the thing, punishing yourself and feeling guilt and shame helps nobody. Like, guilt and shame think they're being really helpful, but they're not. Guilt and shame, they think that what they're doing is pushing you into a different season, right? Making sure that you don't keep yourself in a hole. And this is guilt and shame's words, right? Of like, you put yourself in a hole. We need to make sure that you get out as soon as possible, right? This is like punishment, negative reinforcement. Like, you were so bad for doing this, or this is not a good thing you're doing, so you better get out as fast as you can, right? You're dumb. This is not good. How could you? And I'm being like really aggressive right now, but sometimes that's what guilt and shame does. That's negative reinforcement, okay? Negative reinforcement has proven to be an ineffective management style versus positive reinforcement, which is commending yourself on the things you are doing well, giving yourself grace, giving yourself compassion, giving yourself autonomy, commending yourself for the decisions you are making. Positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, I don't remember the exact study, but there was a study that was done that tested both, and both yielded change in behavior. Both yielded results. But positive reinforcement yielded long-term results. Actually sustained the results over a long period of time, right? And that's because you're not carrying around the weight of you're bad, this was wrong, get out now. Because what negative reinforcement does is it causes you to punish yourself, right? Where it's like, this is bad, stop doing it, or get out as fast as you can. You don't deserve good and fun things. I need to punish you so that you never do this again. Okay? That's what negative reinforcement is. That's what guilt and shame does. It's a beating stick. So what happens is that, okay, if you let yourself get beaten up by your own brain over and over and over and over again, it probably would be long-term effective. But what happens is, because you're in your own body, you're in your own brain, and you're beating yourself up over and over and over again, you go into a blackout. You literally stop feeling or thinking. You shut yourself down so you don't have to think about it. So you don't have to keep getting beaten up. Okay? You black out. You numb out. You stop thinking about it. You stop working on it. Because if it's between feeling nothing and getting beaten up, you're going to choose feeling nothing. And the blackout is where things happen that you don't want to happen. That's where unintentional money decisions are made. That's YOLO fuck it energy. That's who cares, I could die tomorrow, run it up. Run up the tab. Drinks on me. That's what happens in a blackout. So what I want you to offer yourself is a wonderful third option, which is, can I get behind the decisions I'm making with my money? And can I give myself compassion and grace for this season of financial life that I am in? Can I speak nicely to myself? And when I speak nicely to myself and I show myself that that is another option, I don't have to black out. And when I don't black out, I can stay aware. So even if I am utilizing my savings right now in order to support myself during a time of transition or during a time of crisis, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to black out and just say run it up and have no idea what I'm actually spending on. I'm going to keep having my financial CEO parties. I'm going to keep looking at my credit statements. I'm going to keep looking and seeing if I'm spending how much I actually want to be spending. I'm not going to black out. I'm going to stay aware and say, I have enough money to support myself. And I know that in 3 months' time, if I haven't gotten the new job, or in 3 months' time, I know that all the moving expenses are going to be taken care of, or in 3 months' time, I know, like insert whatever, you're going to give yourself some benchmarks. But you can say like, I'm good for 3 months because I'm 3 months ahead on bills and I see that in my bank account. And so I'm going to keep utilizing the exact same amount every single month, and I'm going to stay aware of my money so that I can support myself for these next 3 months. How wonderful it is that I have this money to support myself during insert thing that's happening in your life right now. Same thing with going into debt. A lot of times, right, when you are having to use debt, use a line of credit, use a loan, use a credit card in order to support yourself. I'm using a moving example a lot because I've had a lot of people need to put things on a credit card when they are moving cities, moving homes, whatever. So when you are putting money onto a credit card, guilt and shame, and Dave Ramsey will say, bad, not good. You're doing a bad thing. This is not a good money move. Stop. SOS. Like, that's what your brain will start doing. And so because it starts yelling at you, you black out and you're like, fuck it, I'm going into debt. So might as well just close my eyes and run it up, right? Instead of, I am intentionally choosing to use a line of credit to support myself during this season of life, knowing that there will come a time where I will be able to pay this off. And I am deciding how much I want to put on the credit card. So do you see the difference here? It's like having to use a line of credit. You could either be in the space of, well, I shouldn't even be using a line of credit, which means I'm bad at money, so fuck it. If I'm going to be in credit card debt, might as well just fucking be in credit card debt. Or I'm going to use this credit card for the next X amount of months or for this specific realm of expenses. And that's the only thing that's going to go on there. And this is the amount that I know is going to go on there. And then at this point in time, when I have the new job, when my income increased, when I'm past this season, when I'm past this crisis, at this point in time, I'm going to have a debt payoff plan, that's easy and inevitable. I'm going to link that episode in the show notes as well. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, go listen to that one as well. I'm going to have a debt payoff plan that's easy and inevitable so I can pay this off. Do you see the difference? Because one is going to have you intentionally feeling good about the money decisions you make and probably give you less debt to pay off in the future. And one makes you feel better now because you can be ignorant and in naivete and not have to think about it. But you're going to spend money on stuff you don't want to be spending money on. That's not actually supporting you. You're going to be in a blackout. You're going to start to put a wedge in your relationship with money because you've now divorced yourself from your financial life, from your finances, from your dollars, because you've gone into a blackout. So this is what that punishment, that negative reinforcement does. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help you in your financial life. It actively hurts you because it pushes you into blackout. And the number one thing that I want for you is to never be in a blackout with your money. So one of your pieces of homework is, if you are currently in a season where you are utilizing savings or putting something on a credit card or using a loan, utilizing your emergency fund, I want you to go in and I want you to look at the numbers and I want you to talk to them and I want you to say, thank you so much for being here to support me. I am so glad that past me put this money in the bank for current me to utilize. This is exactly what it's for. Or if you're talking to your credit card, your credit card balance, you can say, thank you so much for being available to me. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have access to you. If I didn't have access to you, I would have to move out of this apartment that I love so much. If I didn't have access to you, I would have to move back in with my parents. If I didn't have access to you, I would be in a deep, deep depressive episode because I literally would not know how to survive. Can we see a line of credit and you being able to put something on a credit card during a time of transition or crisis as a beautiful, wonderful gift that you have been given, that you gave yourself because you had the credit score to get approved for that loan or that credit. Past you opened a card that now you have access to use. Wow. How amazing. What a financial badass that you were, that you gave yourself this line of credit to be able to utilize during your time of need. How incredible that you were able to save up, get 6 months ahead on bills, so that even if it's during a time where you are just floating and confused and unsure of what you want life to look like, that this 6 months ahead on bills fund can support you asking those big questions and figuring out what you want from life. Oh my God, thank you, past me. Fuck yeah, what a financial badass. And guess what? Past you is current you is future you. So that means that the financial badass that got herself 6 months ahead on bills is the same financial badass that's going to intentionally utilize 6 months of bills in order to figure out what she wants out of life, so that future her will have the funds and availability and freedom and enjoyment of life and lightness in her life to be able to not only refill and get 6 months ahead on bills again, but then be able to double her investments, be able to retire early, be able to take vacations. It's all the same financial badass. The financial badass that had the credit score that was able to open up a line of credit and a loan for them is the same financial badass who's going to intentionally use that line of credit with full awareness, with full sign off, stamp it, yes, I love it energy, right? I support this decision. Is the same financial badass who's going to be able to have a debt payoff plan that's easy and inevitable, that's going to be able to pay it off with ease. It's all the same version of you. And see, this is how I want you to be talking to yourself and your money if you are in a season like this, because this is what's going to keep you moving. Do you feel the energy shift, right, with how we're talking about money right now? Because what this feels like is possibility. This doesn't feel heavy. This feels like, yeah, I'm good. I'm utilizing my savings. I'm putting something on credit, but I know there's an end date and I'm good because I'm aware. There's nothing that could surprise me, right? I've got this. I've got me. Do you see the thought now is not how could you, how dare you, why did you, bad, bad, bad. It's not that. It's wow, I trust myself. I know that I can handle this. I'm good. I've got myself. And even though I might be in a season of money that feels scarier and foreign than what I'm used to, I've got this. So what this is doing when you are utilizing your savings or utilizing a line of credit for a certain season of life, you're not doing something wrong. All you're doing is putting full faith and trust in future you that she's going to figure it out too. You have full trust in your future self to pay off the debt and to build up the savings and to be in a more expansive financial life in the future. You're setting herself up for that. That's what you're doing. It's not that you're making things harder for her. You're looking at her and you're saying, I fully trust you. Thank you, girl, for having my back. Or you're looking at past you and you're saying, thank you. Thank you for setting myself up for this time where I'm able to then just coast or move through this hard thing and have space. If it is like a crisis or a disaster that's happening in your personal life or on the world stage, that you're able to give yourself time financially in order to process and heal in whatever you need to do, right? Thank you, past me. I trust you, future me. Thank you, past me, for trusting current me, for trusting future me. So now I want to show you a visual here. So if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. But this is a timeline, right? On the far left is the first moment money came into your consciousness. And on the far right is when you die, okay? So you're somewhere in the middle. You're somewhere in the middle. Now, when it comes to money, when you're paying off debt, you're drawing a line backwards. You're taking care of past you who needed to utilize a line of credit in order to support herself, okay? When you draw a line forward, that's saving money, okay? You're putting money aside for future you. Now, if you go all the way to the far right end of the spectrum, right, when you die, when you start drawing an arrow backwards from the far right side of the timeline to current you, right? That's investing. Because when you invest, that's giving you more years from end of life to now in order to not have to work. That's what investing is, okay? So when all of these arrows touch, that means you have fully financially supported your entire life, okay? So all of these things, paying off debt, saving, investing, are all ways that you are supporting your financial freedom, okay? None is better than the other. They're all just arrows on the timeline. Now, when you are utilizing savings, right, the arrow here from current you pointing towards future you, pointing towards the right, the arrow is just going to get a little shorter because you're now utilizing some of those savings for future you, okay? And when you are utilizing debt or a line of credit, same thing, right? You're borrowing money from future you to support current you. And what this feels like, what can feel stressful about this sometimes, is because you forget there's an entire timeline of versions of you who are all going to have a financial life. There are so many versions of you, right? So the version of you here, right, farther on the right of the timeline, is going to be able to fully pay off the debt that current you had to utilize or fully build up the savings. So when I say you're putting trust in future you, it's all of these little tick marks. Every single version of you here is a financial badass and is going to do the financial moves that they need to do in order to support themselves across the entire timeline. So if you need to borrow some money for future you to put yourself in a good position here right now, great, you can do that. Because future you isn't just going to be taking care of her. She's also going to be taking care of past you and future you. So future you is going to have the ability to take care of multiple versions of you if you need to borrow from her right now. So I want you to think about that visual. You are not one stagnant thing that has to support all of past you, all of current you, and all of future you, all at the same time. There's so many versions of you that are going to be able to shoulder financial burden for the rest of your life. So when we're releasing shame, this is what we're talking about. It's putting trust in all of these different versions of you, okay? So past you has to believe in current you, and current you has to believe in future you, right? So releasing guilt and shame is Imperative in order to be able to put yourself in a good financial position in the future. Punishment doesn't work. Punishing yourself does not work. If you need to utilize a line of credit or use your savings right now, great. You still get to have fun. You still get to go out to eat. You still get to have your coffee. Paying off debt doesn't have to feel like a punishment. Paying off debt doesn't mean you have to be on a ramen diet and you're not allowed to do anything fun. You can still go on vacation. You can still go to your concerts. You can still have the fun things that you desire. When you are utilizing your savings, and this is why I teach it how I teach it, when we're talking about the money flow method, when you're talking about what it costs to live as you month to month to month, when we're looking at your numbers, which I call your firm and your flex number and your flex number, these numbers added together are what it costs to live as you month to month to month. And so what I want you to do is get your spending consistent. Yes, it's going to fluctuate some, but if you can be aware and consistent with your spending, when your income fluctuates, it won't matter. Because if you're consistent with your spending, your high months are going to buffer your low months. Okay? And so then when you are in a period of time where you've gotten 3 months ahead on bills in your savings account and you go to use those 3 months ahead on bills, you're able to still live the same lifestyle you're living, right? You don't have to go into this like crash diet energy just because you're in between incomes or just because you needed to utilize a bunch of your savings in order to pay for a medical expense, to pay for a last minute hotel for 2 weeks when you were evacuated, right? You are still able to live the same kind of life. That is what's so good for our nervous system. This is what financial self-care is. Financial self-care is proactively managing your money in a way where it can support you during times like this. But also, financial self-care is not pushing yourself into a state of deprivation and restriction and punishment when you are in a time of crisis and disaster and change. Financial self-care is still treating yourself well with your money when you are in a time of transition, disaster, or change. Okay? So how to not feel shame if you're spending your savings or using a line of credit right now? Spark notes, TLDR. Trust future you that she's got your back and stay aware. And stay aware and intentional. That's the long and the short of it. Right? Stay intentional with how you continue to use your dollars and talk to future you. Do some journaling and some scripting here where you can write a letter to your future self thanking her for paying off the debt or building up the savings that you're currently using. Write a letter to your past self and say, thank you so much for having my back and opening that credit card and having this money set aside for me. Write a letter to your current self about all of the decisions you are making financially and why they are sound decisions. Back yourself on why you are utilizing your savings. Back yourself on why you are using a line of credit. Say, I sign off on this decision. See this number? I sign off on it. Why? Because X, Y, and Z. Because of what's going on, and here's my thinking, here's my decision-making process in full awareness why I am choosing to do this thing. Back your decisions. Okay? That's how you can have compassion. That's how you release the guilt and the shame. Because guilt and shame usually is bred from blackouts and unintentionality. So if you can stay intentional and you can stay out of a blackout and you are making sound decisions with your full brain in full awareness, guilt and shame won't be able to fester there because you are telling yourself, I back you. I like these decisions. I might not like the life event or the disaster or the crisis that created the environment for me to have to make this decision, but that's a different discussion. So channel your anger, channel your sadness at the crisis, the life event, the disaster. But then how you navigate the disaster, crisis, or life decision, back it. Back it. You can't be mad at that. Be mad at the thing that caused the environment for you to have to make a decision like this. But then don't be mad at the decision. Don't be mad at your incredible financial decision-making skills. That's how I want you to be speaking to yourself. And as you're going through this homework, if you're like, you know what? I actually don't back these financial decisions. Great. Now you get to make a new decision. Now you get to make a new decision and back it. And then give yourself grace and compassion for why you made the financial decision you did before, right? Have compassion for past blackouts of, wow, I'm going to have compassion for myself because of course I wasn't thinking. Of course I went into a blackout because now that I've listened to this podcast, I've listened to Brooke talk about all this. I see exactly what happened. Wow, I'm going to have compassion for myself that was just trying to avoid the beating stick. Of course she went into a blackout. Of course she accrued that debt. Of course she didn't save. Of course all that happened. But guess what, baby girl? I've got you. Oh, I'm getting emotional as I'm talking about this, right? It's like, you're okay. I love you so much. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that life happened that way. I'm so sorry that my brain spoke so meanly to you that it caused you to go into a blackout. But guess what? No shame, no guilt needed. There's no weight on you. I'm not mad at you at all because I totally see what happened. And guess what, baby girl? I'm going to take care of you. I've got it. I'm going to pay off the debt. I might not pay off the debt right now. I might be utilizing more debt right now. But guess what? Future us, she's got us. She's got us, girl. We're going to be good. I've got you. You've got me. She's got us. We've got each other, right? That really loving way that you can speak to yourself around your money, because this is what's going to cause you to increase your bank accounts quicker, pay off the debt faster, and do it all with way more ease. This money stuff gets to be easy. The thing that makes it feel hard is when we carry around guilt and shame, and when we feel like we have to punish ourselves financially for decisions we've made in the past. When you release all of that, money gets so much easier. Money gets so much simpler when you release all of that. Okay? So I am sending you all so much love this week. Remember to process your emotions. I'm also going to link that podcast episode because I think it's very prevalent to what a lot of us are experiencing this week. Feeling through your feelings and feeling your emotions to avoid blacking out, to avoid numbing. I actually earlier this week realized that I'm recording this right now on Thursday. And yesterday on Wednesday, I was like, wow, it's weird that I haven't cried this week yet. Like, it's really weird that I haven't cried because that's how I process my emotions. And I found myself like feeling very like stuck, in a bit of a freeze. I was numb. Like, I was in a very weird place at the beginning of this week, validly so. But I was like, ooh, it's interesting that I haven't cried. I think I'm not allowing myself to like feel the fear, the scared feelings, the sad feelings, the angry feelings. And then when I like opened that door and when I realized I was numbing, I collapsed and I sobbed, and it was really scary and it was really hard. But then I was able to come out of it and be like, okay, and this is what we have to do moving forward, right? Moving forward through this tunnel we are walking through. So I'm going to link the podcast episode where I talk about how to actually feel your feelings. And it's from the realm of like how to actually feel your feelings so you can make more money, right? But how to actually feel your feelings, it's going to have an effect on every area of your life. So I'm going to link that podcast episode as well. So I'll be sending you all so much love, and I will talk to you all next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.